social media, would you felt like I put you on the spot? We showed some of your work. All right, cool. All right, Lauren, Shannon, Tangbin, and Aaliyah. All right, folks, good to see you. You all have a upcoming break. You're lucky for the whole week. I hope you all are going to enjoy your break and be safe and eat a lot of turkey or whatever you're going to eat. Okay. I did a lot of grading. There's still some quizzes I still need to grade. Okay. But for the most part, I believe I caught up with everyone with their simulations. And I think I graded up to like quiz 9. I know some people, excuse me, handed in prior quizzes. I just need to go back and backtrack where you are. A lot of people are done, which is great. You finish your simulation, you finish your quiz. You know, I'm always for that type of stuff. Make the most of your time. So, sorry. Here's all the rankings here. I'm just going to show for all rounds because most people are done. Most people have finished up to round 10. Okay. You all can see this on your screen? The results? Okay, great. I wish the column stayed in place while we're scrolling through so you can see the matching result, you know, revenue, profits, return on investment, and reach. Okay, again, you know, when you're out there interviewing with future employers or clients, you want to talk about these simulations because this was to give you real world practice in managing these type of campaigns. All right, so that's where everyone stands. Tonight we're going to talk about social media. I have about 10 slides that I want to go over with you all. All right, now, how many of us are on social media? Right, like everybody and their grandma, literally. Okay, what do you all use now? As you're all 20 somethings. What's the most popular platform that you're all on?
MySpace.
If you're on MySpace, I don't know what you're doing on there. No, seriously, Brian, what is everyone using today?
Instagram.
Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. Do people use Snapchat? Okay, cool. All right, I just wondered. You know, I personally don't use Snapchat, but my kid is 9 years old. Okay, and believe it or not, she's on social media already. Have you all ever heard of Musically? Right? Like, she's crazy about these things. Okay? It worries me sometimes because I'm like, you know, I don't want just random people looking at my kid, but you all understand at some point in time. Just wait till your 30s. But, you know, like I said, everyone and their grandma's on social media. So this is a very important chapter for you all, especially as marketers, how you can leverage social media to make the most out of your marketing campaigns. Okay, so we're going to describe the formula to make things go viral and how to use it to increase the likelihood of a social media campaign going viral. And we're going to describe the parts of a social media campaign and use this plan to design an effective campaign and to determine effective ways to use Facebook in a social media campaign. I'm personally happy to hear that you all are still on Facebook, because that's the social media platform I spend the most time on. Okay. And, you know, sometimes these things can be very, very fickle. You know, they're hot one minute, the next minute they phase out. So I think Facebook has some type of, I think it'll stick around for a while. Last semester, it was just like a perfect event for my last digital marketing course, because Mark Zuckerberg was going in front of the Senate. Did you all watch that last year? Right? It's just so important to be aware of how integrated social media is in our lives. You know, the campaign, the presidential campaign was influenced largely due to social media. All right. So again, you're all marketers. You know, you want to take heed to these lessons. So doing social media, you know, we all know about posting content. You know, you want to create new customers. All right. And then once you have new customers, this creates customer loyalty. All right. We discussed search engine optimization. All right. Having a strong social media presence helps you with SEO efforts. Now, search engines will say that they don't give a lot of weight to social media, but it's still like you still need it. All right. It still helps your efforts. Okay. You can pay to play on social media. All right. A lot of people say, and it's especially true with Facebook today, that if you aren't paying Facebook to publish your post up front, chances are it's not going to show up on people's walls. It used to be different with Facebook, but, you know, Facebook has to make money too. So if you want more eyes in front of your social media post, you can pay to play on social media as well. Reputation management. A lot of companies use social media for this very purpose. They do social monitoring. Okay. They examine specific comments about their company, and then they respond to these comments. All right. They also do social listening. That summarizes all the social media data about a brand or a topic, and they get a general sense of their conversation. All right. Here's the path of loyalty for social media. You acquire the fan, the user, the Twitter follower, etc. Okay? Acquisition can mean a purchase. It can mean someone submitting their email account, or even just acquiring a like or a follower to your social media platform. And then you engage your followers or fans. Okay? And after those two paths, that leads to loyalty. Okay? The text talks a little bit about that. You know, it's just a graphic that speaks on that. Just a quick social media plan. Determine the objective. Okay, that's very important. I will admit to, you know, I have a small web design business, and I don't post as often as I could on my own social media platforms because, you know, sometimes you run out of ideas. Okay, so you need to determine a objective. Why am I posting? What am I trying to achieve? What type of conversion do I want for my fans, my followers, etc.? Okay, then you choose your platform. All right, your platform should be something that you, yourself, and your entire marketing team are comfortable running. You know, if you're looking to get a nice ROI on a new campaign, I wouldn't run with a platform that no one's ever used before, because then you have to account for time that you all need to learn how to use that platform. So choose a platform that you're all comfortable on. You may already exist on an existing platform. Use that platform. Then you plan out your content. Okay, that's very important. As marketing people, if you're not creating all the content, then you need to wrangle the copywriters, the graphic designers, the web designers, the programmers, IT, etc. Okay, marketing is really an essential of all these different departments. Okay, and then you distribute and promote the content. All right. Are you going to post it on different platforms? How are we going to tweet this out? Are we going to just put it on the Facebook wall? Are we just going to do an image type of campaign? When we promote our content, are we going to do paid promotion, or we're just going to rely on people coming to our platforms and we get those eyeballs that way? Okay, and then we talked about analytics. You also want to measure your success with your social media plan. Platforms like Facebook and Twitter, they will give you metrics just like Google Analytics, where you can see how many clicks you got, how many conversions, etc. There is a formula created. And again, if you, down the road after you graduate and you want to refer back to this formula, okay, Stu I believe, gives you lifetime access to your course material, okay? So you guys can always go back here and get this slide and look at this formula here, all right? So X equals, and X R's, one person watching a video equals X, okay? PF multiplied by N multiplied by PV. PF is the probability of someone forwarding. N is the number of people who receive or see the forward. And PV is the probability of viewing the forward, okay? I'm not really going to go deeper into that. It's just to let you know that there has been a formula put out there that determines if a video will go viral or not, okay? So when you're creating your marketing campaigns, you're creating your content, and if you have a client or an employer that says, hey, I need you to prove to me that all this money that we're investing into this campaign will pay off, then you can refer to a formula like this, okay? And go from there, all right? Here's a link that shows the top viral videos of all time. What about that, huh? Wait, I don't know. Can you guys see? Oh, I got the PowerPoint. I'll probably have to bring that down. You can't see that. I'm on slide 10. I'll drop this. I'll drop slide 7. Okay, so these are the 55 best YouTube videos that went viral. Rebecca Black. I swear to God, Friday still plays in my head, and I don't have a problem with it at all. Okay, because who does not like to get down on a Friday? All right, Charlie bit my finger. I remember the first viral video I saw was the dude doing the backwards flip, the karate guy. Anyone ever remember that one? He like flipped backwards and then fell on his head. It was just back in the day for me. So yeah, we all know about a lot of these videos, right? You guys ever see this one? Yeah, right. That little boy's a trip. Linda. All I know is my wife would have snapped. Are you calling me by my first name? Oh yeah, the Chewbacca lady. I gotta play that, don't I?
I'm really excited to share with you something I got. Okay, I went to Kohl's today. I had to make a couple returns.
I just want to hear a laugh.
Say that this has Star Wars. Oh, you're getting a little hint. Okay, so you want to see what I got? It's so great. I can't wait to show you. Okay, this is part of my birthday joy. Still rejoicing in my birthday. And so here's what I got. I'm going to take it out of the box. And I can't wait to show you. Okay, I'm in a parking lot and people are literally looking at me like crazy. I don't even care. Okay, so here it is. Hold on. It may be a little tight. It may be... I will get it at the end. Yes! Now watch when my mouth actually moves. That's not me making that noise. It's the mask. Here, listen.
I'm sorry. That cracks me up. It really does. Okay. So yeah, that's a lot of. All right, so going viral versus being persuasive. All right, there is a viral video ad persuasiveness test done by Catherine Tucker from MIT. Okay, she conducted a study to measure the persuasiveness of viral video ads and how persuasiveness related to how viral these ads become. In order to measure how persuasive an ad can be, right here, she compared persuasiveness of 396 different viral videos using 24,367 participants. All right, they watched a viral video ad, and a video was randomly assigned, and she had a control and a decoy video assigned to half of the participants, and then she measured the purchase intention for the brand and the decoy brand. All right. Then participants answered questions about their purchase intention for the brand whose video that they just watched, as well as for the decoy brand. Because half of the participants watched a control video, Tucker could compare purchase intention for those who saw the video ad with those who saw the decoy video ad for an unrelated product. The difference in purchase intention reflects the effect of watching the video ad. Next, Tucker ran a model to measure the relationship between how viral the ad and how persuasive it could be. Specifically, she ran a prohibit regression using a binary dependent variable, whether the survey respondent indicated that they were likely or very likely to purchase the brand's product. Okay? Someone put a lot of work into this, all right? And her name was Catherine Tucker. As independent variables, she included whether the person had been exposed to that brand's viral video ad, which should positively affect purchase intention, as well as how viral that ad is measured in total views. All right, so here's the results of that study. All right, and this here says the table comes directly from her paper, and it shows the results of 4 different models, as you see here. All right, measuring how exposure to the video ad affected purchase intention. The third variable, exposed, shows the effect of seeing the target video ad. The effect is positive, indicating that seeing an ad for the product increased purchase intention. The top variable, exposed, multiplied by log views, reflects how the validity of the ad affected its persuasiveness. The coefficient is negative, indicating, I should put the pointer up here. The coefficient is negative, indicating that the more viral that the video was, the less persuasive it tended to be. The explanation of these results is straightforward. The videos that were more likely to go viral were more humorous, outrageous, over the top, etc. By making the video more viral, the advertiser had to reduce the persuasive appeals in favor for more share-inducing content. So things that people are more likely to share. Tucker's study generated additional insights that advertisers can use to get the best of both worlds. She found that humorous content and visual content tends not to show this trade-off as dramatically. That is, highly humorous content can still be quite persuasive, as can very visual content. Outrageous content, on the other hand, tends to be less persuasive. All right? I think that was important to include that. I think it was important for you all to know that there's been real impactful studies into how successful a viral video would be. All right, so social media objectives. Find new customers through social media posts. This is just an example of some objectives. Find new customers through social media ads. Find new customers through search engines by way of social media. Increase customer loyalty through social media posts. Increase customer loyalty through social media ads. Increase customer loyalty through social monitoring. And gain customer insights through social listening. All right, that's all I have for that. Now I want to let's look at some social media sites. So I'm thinking, let's look at Nike first. You see what they're doing for their social media. So we see right here, we have Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. 32 million likes, 32 million followers. And let's see what their content looks like, just their ads. This is pretty engaging right here, Nice arrow that you just want to click on. I like to have how they have different age groups on here, different genders. Let's look at their Twitter. Pretty consistent. They got the black on white theme. Man. We got any skateboarders in the room? Nice, Carl. Nice. Man. So they do a lot with their imagery. I like that. I want to see their Instagram. We had this image here on our Twitter as well. So then, pretty nice representation of Nike. Okay. Carl, what's your
It's Carlo Valentino with 2 eyes. Just an Italian guy in Italy who's got like a normal name, trying to buy it off him, but it's not going too well.
This is where your fellow classmates work. His social media, and this is You want to talk about what you do?
Yeah. So like all this right here on the screen, this is all 3D modeling. I've gotten into that more recently in the past few months. And basically, you have a model in computer space, and you put like the lighting in different colors, and that's how you can get like realism to the photos. So I've been messing around with that more lately. Hopefully, get into like that's what they're using for virtual reality, video games, and then keep going down. So these are all 3D models. And then before this, I was doing a lot of graphic design with like Photoshop, Illustrator, and just like drawing on my computer screen with a tablet.
And I think I wanted to share this because, Carl, this is great work. And, this serves as a great portfolio piece, you all are a lot of your seniors, and you should constantly be thinking about how to promote yourself. Social media today is a powerful tool that you have at your hands, and to allow you to promote yourself. So, thank you for allowing us to share your work, show your work. Like I said, I think it's fantastic work. So yeah, that's it for the examples. Does anyone else have a social media site that they want to share? Okay. Oh, sorry. We can switch back to the desktop. Thank you. Anyone have any questions? All right. Loud.
If you are like practically every other person on the planet, you are well versed in social media from the user's perspective. This section and the next are about the commercial side of social media, specifically creating social media campaigns for a company to improve its profitability with its customers. This section gives you a framework for thinking about creating profitable social media campaigns for a company of any size. Because there's so much misinformation in the social media sphere, we're going to begin by dispelling a few pervasive myths about social media marketing. Perhaps the most pervasive myth about social media marketing from the company perspective is that social media is free. This is only true in the limited sense that most social media platforms allow companies to set up profiles and participate in social media for free. But managing a company's social media profiles and content requires consistent work, which is not free. Setting up a company social media profile without then consistently updating content on that profile can actually negatively impact a company because it signals to users that the company is not active and therefore possibly not still in business. To be active on social media, a company needs to both create regular content for its followers and respond to social interactions from users. And if it wants its social media efforts to have a positive impact, it also needs to put effort into attracting and retaining followers to its profile. All of those efforts require budget outlays to ensure continued management of social media profiles. A second myth is that social media is all about going viral. One of the reasons this myth is so pervasive is that most well-known social media success stories revolve around some viral success. You've probably seen the Old Spice commercial, a bit dated now, but still one of the great successes of social media. It was successful because it went viral and was hugely profitable for Old Spice. So you might think, if it worked for them, it should work for us. Let's create a really funny video that goes viral. But having a video that goes viral is not the only way to be successful on social media. And even more important than that, crafting a social media strategy that revolves around something going viral is almost guaranteed to fail. First of all, there's no way to guarantee that your video will go viral. In fact, a very, very small proportion of videos created to go viral actually go viral. Videos that go viral have more to do with luck than good marketing, so you should not craft a social media strategy around a viral video. Second, even if you are lucky enough to have a video go viral, that will provide you a temporary bump that might last a week, maybe 2 weeks. That won't have a lasting impact on your business unless you know how to harvest customers from that viral video and keep them engaged with your social media content for the long term. A third myth about social media has to do with its growth. Yes, it's true that social media is growing and traditional media is shrinking. But what isn't true is that traditional media is about to go extinct and social media is about to take over the world. One of the most common errors in business thought is overthinking and overemphasizing growth. Just because something is growing doesn't mean it's going to take over the world. You have to simultaneously consider the size and growth rate. The growth rate of social media has been staggering, but that's partly due to the fact that social media spending was so incredibly small relative to traditional media. And even this many years later, it's still quite small relative to traditional media. Traditional media isn't going anywhere, so don't think a company needs to abandon traditional media in favor of social media. Most of the well-known and widely publicized social media successes are about companies that reached millions and millions of people with a well-crafted social media campaign or viral video. But a good social media campaign does not necessarily have to reach millions of people. The success of social media efforts should be measured relative to the company's goals and not relative to other social media campaigns. If you're a small local company, you will never have as many followers as Walmart, but that doesn't mean your company can't benefit from social media efforts. If your social media efforts yield new customers, improve customer retention, or increase customer share of wallet, you've hit pay dirt. So don't be overly consumed with vanity metrics like the number of followers on your social media page. Good social media efforts can improve a company's profitability, but it can't fix all your problems. Sometimes companies get this idea that they're a good social media campaign away from profitability when their customer service is lackluster, their products are undesirable, and they have lots of other problems. Trying to do great social media before you've solved basic business fundamentals is putting the cart before the horse. Social media is great for attracting and retaining customers. It doesn't fix basic business problems. Social media is unique from traditional media in a variety of ways, and that's obvious to everybody. But the end goal of social media is typically the same as the end goal of traditional media, acquiring and retaining customers. Just because they differ doesn't mean social and traditional media efforts need to be independent. Good messaging is likely to be good messaging on both traditional media and social media, so a company should keep in mind ways to link social and traditional media efforts. If you have a good grasp of these 6 myths, you're much better off than a lot of people. But knowing what social media isn't doesn't give you tools for doing social media well. For the rest of this chapter, we'll discuss a framework for creating and managing good social media campaigns. The 4 steps in creating a successful social media campaign are: first, determine the objective. Second, plan the content. Third, attract followers to the content. Fourth, measure success. Companies vary. They have different business models, different customers, different products and services, different locations. So there isn't a one-size-fits-all business objective with social media. First and foremost, companies need to determine what they want to accomplish with their social media efforts. Once the objective has been determined, the company needs to determine the basic breakdown of content they plan to post. If there's nothing for followers to see, read, watch, or learn about, there's no reason for customers to engage with a company on social media. Once a company has figured out a content plan, then it can go about attracting followers. Attracting followers and creating content sort of seems like a chicken-egg problem. Which one should come first? If you create content without followers, the content doesn't do any good. On the other hand, it's hard to attract followers when there's no content for them. What incentive do they have to follow you if there's nothing there for them? In social media, it makes more sense to create some good content before trying to attract followers. The first pieces of content might not get a lot of attention since there won't be followers to see it, but since this content is what potential followers will see, it won't be wasted effort. Finally, you won't know if you're actually accomplishing your objectives unless you measure the results. Getting reliable measures of success on social media can be difficult, but we'll discuss some guidelines for doing this. For most companies, the primary objective of a social media campaign will be one of 2 things. Either 1, induce additional purchases, or 2, build brand equity. Of course, other social media objectives exist, and we'll discuss those briefly. But for most companies, their social media efforts are best put to use for one of those two purposes. For companies that sell products online, social media can be a goldmine. Because people use social media from internet-connected devices, they're in a sense standing at a cash register with their wallets out. If you can entice them with the right social media content, they're ready to purchase. Add to that the fact that if they're following you on social media, they already like your stuff. They're practically begging you to show them something they can buy. If you show them the right things with the right messaging and perhaps the right incentives like a discount or promotional offer, you've got ready-made sales. This does come with a caveat, however. Lots of people in the social media world warn against being overly sales-oriented. They advise creating quote-unquote native content. People are not on social media to be sold to. They're there for the social connections. So if a company tries to sell too much, they run the risk of turning people off. My own opinion is that these fears are overblown. A person doesn't connect with a company on social media because they want to be friends with a company. They connect because they like the company's stuff. So show them the stuff. But we'll talk about this in more detail in the next section on content planning. The other likely objective of a social media campaign is to build brand equity. Brand equity is a general term referring to the fact that customers know and value your brand. Having high brand equity is valuable because it makes people more likely to purchase that brand over competitors' brands. Good social media content can continually improve brand equity by reminding customers and potential customers about the brand and what it does well. A reasonable question you might have is, why would I choose to build brand equity as my objective rather than getting sales? It's a valid question. Higher brand equity leads to higher sales in theory, but why get theoretical sales instead of real and immediate sales? The answer to this question is probably obvious to many of you. Not all companies sell stuff online, but building brand equity can help them improve sales offline. People generally don't buy Lay's potato chips online. But Lay's has done some great social media which has built brand equity for the Lay's brand. This has likely improved sales by making their followers more likely to eat chips with their meal rather than skipping the chips. It also improves sales by making followers more likely to choose Lay's over a competitor like Pringles or Sun Chips. So it makes sense for Lay's to build brand equity with their social media efforts, even if it doesn't translate to immediate online sales. As another example, consider IBM. They don't sell things online, but they have a thriving social media ecosystem. I call it an ecosystem because they're active on practically every social media platform. What is all the social media doing if it's not giving IBM online sales? Well, it's building brand equity. And how does that brand equity translate to sales? One of IBM's biggest services is IT consulting. If you manage the IT for a company, when you're deciding which company to contract with, IBM is going to be top of mind because they have high brand equity in the IT space, and their social media efforts maintain and improve this high brand equity. So those are the two major objectives you're likely to be aiming for with your social media efforts. There are, of course, others, so let's discuss those briefly. Notice that we said the primary objective of social media is likely to be to induce additional purchases from existing customers and not to find new customers. That's because most people will only follow a company on social media if they're already convinced of the value of that company. But there are instances in which social media campaigns allow companies to attract new customers. A particularly interesting piece of content might be shared by a current follower, thus allowing the company to reach new customers. Customer service can sometimes be managed more cheaply via social media than through call centers or other methods. Delta was one of the first companies to begin using Twitter to manage customer complaints. This had the twofold benefit of first, improving their customer service, and second, preventing the Twitter sphere from erupting in unanswered criticism of Delta. When it comes down to it, people will always complain about flying, so responding to complaints on Twitter helps Delta address those complaints, and importantly, people can see a public record of Delta doing their best to improve customers' experiences. Related to this example of customer service, social media can also be a good place to provide customer support. Cisco, the huge technology company, has a Facebook page called Cisco Support Community where customers can find information and training and also get feedback on technical issues. If Cisco's customers can find fixes to their issues on this page before they call in, that's a huge win for Cisco on the cost savings front. Plus, anyone who's in charge of the technical products within a company might want to keep up to date on changes and new technology from Cisco. Keeping their core users informed can help sales in the long term. Feedback from customers can be very valuable to companies. Since they've already connected with customers on social media, companies can use those customers to gather valuable feedback. This, of course, should be a secondary objective, but one that a company could keep in mind. Once an objective has been determined, it's time to plan the content. We'll discuss that next. The second step in creating a social media campaign is to plan the content. It might seem premature to plan content before a company even has followers or anyone likely to see the content, but it's a lot better for new followers to see loads of pre-existing content than for them to see an empty social media profile. In addition, having a plan in place prevents a company from having to scramble and put together low-quality content later. An important thing to keep in mind as you create social media content for a company is that brands are not friends. People don't want to have a conversation with Pepsi. They don't want to snuggle Nike at night, and they don't want to throw a dinner party for a collection of corporate logos. People don't follow a company's social media profile because they want to connect socially. They connect with a company on social media because they hope the company has something to offer them. And there are usually a wide variety of things a company could offer, so it's beneficial to think broadly about these things. First, deals, discounts, bargains, promotional offers, anything that customers perceive to be a good value is likely to spark interest from social media followers. A company's followers probably connected with a company because they like their products. Offering some of those products at a discount is likely to have widespread appeal, so this is usually a winner. Like this post from Walmart. These are products with widespread appeal at discounted prices, so it's the perfect marketplace win-win. Walmart gets profits, the consumer gets a good deal. A company that makes products knows more about those products than its customers do. Sharing useful tips for using those products more effectively can be beneficial to customers. For example, Kraft shares recipes that use Kraft products. Not only does this content build brand equity, it also encourages sales of Kraft products. In addition to select knowledge about product uses, companies are also privy to information that is often of interest to customers. People go crazy to learn about Apple's new products, and Apple tends to keep this information secret so they can unveil it dramatically at their annual showcase. But if they teased some of this information, or perhaps revealed information about secondary products, there would be a huge audience eager for this information on social media. And in fact, that's exactly what Apple does with the Apple Insider Twitter account. Making people feel like they're part of an exclusive club of people who are in the know can really motivate customers to connect with a company. Similar to insider knowledge, information about product updates, new products, and new options can have the dual benefit of making customers feel in the know and making them want to purchase said products. BMW's social media accounts are loaded with product information, particularly about new models and new technology being incorporated into their cars. Particularly for companies that sell complex products like software, training and education is valued by customers. White papers and webinars are very common among business-to-business companies as they keep customers happy and help generate new business. The link in this Adobe tweet brought users to a blog post about the various attributes of a good digital marketing strategy. This is useful information to anyone who works in marketing and at the same time reinforces Adobe's identity as an expert in this area, which could help Adobe close contracts on their software and support services later. In marketing, we love to talk about the power of lifestyle brands like Nike, BMW, and Coca-Cola. But when it comes down to it, lifestyle brands are actually pretty rare. There aren't that many brands that can attract followers or create content just around the theme of being part of a community that's centered around the brand. But if you do happen to be a lifestyle brand, like a college sports team, an X Games athlete, or an indie band, say, then content themed around being a community of fans might be an option. In this case, fans just want to stay connected, so any information about the brand and its happenings is worthwhile, like this post from Alabama football on signing day. If your brand isn't a lifestyle brand, then it might be that there's an icon associated with your brand that people might be interested in. The Virgin brand is pretty well known, but not really considered by most to be a lifestyle brand. But its founder, Richard Branson, has a pretty good following on social media. If there is an iconic individual associated with a brand, news from that individual could be valuable content for fans. People like a good laugh, so posting humorous content seems like great content for a company to post. But it's rarely effective. Unless the humor is directly tied to the company some way, it doesn't build brand equity. And generic jokes don't make people purchase products either, so it's usually best to leave the jokes to the comedians. In the case of Old Spice, their social media profiles revolve around oddball humor, so this post might work for them on some level. But it might also make Old Spice sound like a socially awkward teenager desperate for friends. Of course, this list isn't exhaustive, as no list like this could ever include every possible kind of content, but this does cover the vast majority of content you're likely to see on social media. Plus, it gives you a good list to go through to determine potential content for your business's social media page. Before we move on, let's briefly hit on the topic of native content. On social media, native content refers to content that fits in with the rest of the content that brought users to the social media platform in the first place. For example, you go on Facebook to hear from your friends and see the content they post. It follows that if a company wants to connect with its customers, it needs to post content that fits in with this other content. Otherwise, it looks like pushy advertisements and is a huge turnoff. That's the philosophy of social media that many tout. This makes sense on some level, but I wouldn't adopt it as a central belief in doing social media for business. While it's true that people didn't originally sign up for Facebook as a means to find discounts and sales, they still don't necessarily find that content annoying or off-putting. People find tons of different types of content interesting and useful on Facebook, so putting too much emphasis on making your content native might not be beneficial. And it could also be detrimental if your content is native in the wrong way. One way to try to be native is to post humorous quips and jokes like a friend might post. But that can make companies seem insecure and out of their element. So keep the emphasis on native content in the right perspective. One social media platform where native content does seem to be a necessity is Instagram. People on Instagram want to see good pictures. A picture of a coupon is not a welcome sight on Instagram, so content here really does have to fit natively. Lots of companies have done this successfully, including Red Bull, which posts quite engaging photos that have made its Instagram feed one of the most popular.
Yeah, I'm going to show these last two videos. This last video is about 17 minutes long, and it's all about Facebook. I think you all should watch that on your own. Is that all right? Okay. And you know, if you run into a Facebook campaign, watch that lecture video. I just really wanted you all to get the overall.
Once a company has a content plan in place and has created and posted some of this content, it should put effort into attracting followers to see this content. Companies have a lot of options for attracting customers to their social media content. The most common method for attracting followers to a social media page is on the social media platform itself. If you want more followers for your Facebook profile, then you can purchase advertising space on Facebook with the goal of getting people to like your page. If you want Twitter followers, you can advertise on Twitter. If you want more subscribers to your YouTube channel, you can advertise your channel on YouTube. This is usually a very effective way to get followers. But as to whether it's cost effective, that of course depends on how much social media followers are worth to your company. It can actually be pretty difficult to determine the monetary value of a social media follower, so you need to be realistic about their value. Paying $100 per page like is probably not cost effective, but $2 per page like might very well be. But of course that depends on the industry your company is in and the behavior of your customers on social media. We'll discuss measurement of social media results in the next section. Another way to attract social media followers is from the company website. This can be very effective because if somebody's visiting your website, they clearly have an interest in your company or in what your company does. Simply including the very recognizable social media buttons can yield some followers. Even more effective is to include a call to action near the buttons to encourage visitors to connect on social media. However, and this is a big however, you might not want to distract visitors with social media buttons if you'd rather have them convert in another way, like signing up for your email list or making a purchase. Lots of companies use contests and drawings to attract attention from customers or from potential customers. One way to translate that attention into social media followers is to make entry into the drawing or contest contingent on following the social media page. If the company then promises an extra entry for those who post about the content, it can manufacture lots of attention for the contest or drawing. Of course, to make people willing to follow the company's social media platform in exchange for entry, the contest reward or drawing prize has to be very attractive. Another technique for gaining social media followers, and one that is especially useful for companies with brick-and-mortar stores, is in-person reminders and incentives to connect on social media. If you go out for ice cream at a local Baskin-Robbins, it's clear you like Baskin-Robbins ice cream. So if you see a sign in the store encouraging you to connect with them on social media, there's a good chance you'll do just that. If the sign says you get 10% off their ice cream when you like Baskin-Robbins on Facebook, there's an even better chance you'll do it. Finally, lots of companies put on or participate in large events. For example, practically every technology company has some presence at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. Consumers go to that show specifically to see the most recent and upcoming technology products from the companies there. So the attendees are interested in the companies that live tweet during the show or who post information about new products during the show. So these attendees are more likely to become followers during the show. When the show is over, chances are they'll remain followers. Just like you should be doing with practically every other internet marketing activity, you should be measuring the results of your social media activity. The three broad areas you want to measure in social media are volume, engagement, and conversion. If you have good measures of those three broad areas, then you will know if you should focus your social media efforts more on attracting new followers, getting current followers to engage with your content more, or encouraging your followers to convert at a higher propensity. One of the social media myths we mentioned earlier was the myth that social media had to have millions of followers to be successful. The reason that's a myth is that small companies can use social media very successfully without hitting the 1 million follower mark. But higher volume is still better than lower volume, so we want to measure how many people our social media efforts are reaching. We can measure this in a few ways. The total number of followers to our social media page is an obvious and important first measure of volume. All else being equal, we want more followers, of course. Besides the total number of followers, we also want to know how many new followers we've managed to gain. This tells us how successful our latest efforts have been. Social media efforts tend to have both ebbs and flows, so you will at times lose followers. Don't get panicked when you lose followers. It happens to all social media profiles, not just bad ones. But you want to keep track of these losses since they could signal when certain kinds of content are driving users away. Besides metrics on followers, you also want to track impressions or views. When you post content on any social media platform, only a portion of your followers is likely to see it, so you want to track the number of views each of your posts received. Next, we move on to measures of engagement. If your company has 10 million followers, but those followers don't see your posts or engage with them in any way, they're no good to you. Engagement or active participation in and viewership of your social media content is a reliable signal of your social media performance generally. The best and most valuable response you can get for your social media content is to have people repost, retweet, or repin it. In other words, you want people to voluntarily rebroadcast the content that you broadcast. This is basically free advertising. Since that's the goal for your content, you'll want to track how many reposts you were able to generate. Getting people to repost your content is the gold standard, and it's very hard to accomplish. Not that many people actually repost content they see from a company. But getting people to engage with it some other way, liking it, commenting on it, or watching it if it's a video, is also beneficial. So these smaller types of engagement should also be measured. Much of the content you post as a company is likely to include a link to your website. If you post a deal, then you'll want to include a link to the page where they can buy the product at the discounted price. If you post any kind of useful information, you'll include a link where they can read the full article or recipe or blog post. Tracking the number of visitors to your website that the post generates is very easy and very necessary. These first 3 metrics for engagement are post-specific. They measure the results of any given piece of content you post. This last metric, engagement rate, measures your followers. The engagement rate is simply the percentage of your followers who have engaged with your content in any way in the last day, week, month, or any time frame of interest. Obviously, you want this to be as high as possible, and you want to track this number so you know just how well you've been able to engage your followers. After measures of volume and engagement, you would also like to get measures of conversion. The desired effect of social media efforts is increased purchase, either directly if your objective is to induce purchase, or indirectly if your objective is to build brand equity. If you're in charge of your company's social media, you want to show your boss that your efforts are having a positive effect on the company's bottom line, which means you want to show your boss that your efforts are leading to purchases. If your social media objective is to induce purchases, then you're in luck. Your job is easy. All you have to do is measure the conversions that result from traffic brought by your social media posts. That should be very easy if you have analytics properly installed on your site. If the objective of your social media is to build brand equity, then your job is more difficult. One way to show your boss that your social media efforts are working is if you can gather data that shows that your social media followers spend more money or are more likely to purchase from you than non-followers. Makes sense, right? If your followers spend more money than non-followers, then it must be that your social media efforts are helping to make people spend more money. If that argument works with your boss, then great for you. But if your boss is smarter than the average bear, then he or she is likely to point out a huge flaw in your logic. That flaw is a neglect of the possibility of reverse causality. Maybe your social media efforts didn't cause them to be more loyal customers. Maybe the fact that they're more loyal customers is what caused them to become social media followers in the first place. So we don't know for sure that our social media efforts are what are actually causing our customers to spend more money. So to recap, we want to measure 3 aspects of our social media performance. 1, volume, or the amount of reach our social media activity is having. 2, engagement, how much our social media content is inspiring our followers and others to take some desirable interaction with our content, from simply hitting the like button to taking the time to repost our content. And 3, conversion, actually making a purchase as a result of our social media posts.